Urgent. Your February 25th CPP check is changing. New 2026 numbers revealed. There's something happening with Canada pension plan payments that very few Canadians are talking about right now. And if you're receiving CPP or planning to apply for it in the next few months, what I'm about to share with you could directly affect the amount of money landing in your account on February 25th. This isn't speculation. This isn't rumor. The numbers are official. The adjustments are confirmed. And the changes are already being implemented across the system. But here's what concerns me as someone who has spent years analyzing Canadian retirement policy. Most Canadians won't realize what's changed until they see their bank statement at the end of the month. And by then, it may be too late to plan accordingly. My name is Joseph, and over the next several minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly what is shifting with CPP payments in 2026, who this affects, why the government has made these adjustments, and most importantly, what you need to do right now to protect your retirement income. This is not about fear. This is about awareness. Because when it comes to government benefits and pension payments, knowledge is the only real security you have. Let's begin. To understand what's happening right now, we need to look at what's been building quietly over the past 18 months. Since early 2024, the Canada Pension Plan has been undergoing what officials describe as a recalibration phase. This is bureaucratic language for a fundamental shift in how benefits are indexed, calculated, and distributed across millions of Canadian households. The CPP is not a static program. It adjusts annually based on inflation, cost of living data, contribution levels, and demographic pressures. These adjustments are supposed to protect purchasing power. They're supposed to ensure that retirees don't fall behind as the cost of groceries, housing, and healthcare continues to climb. But this year, something different is happening. According to internal documents released by Service Canada in late January, the indexation formula applied to CPP payments for 2026 has been recalculated using updated consumer price index data, revised maximum pensionable earnings, and new actuarial forecasts tied to life expectancy and workforce participation rates. In plain language, the government has adjusted the math, and that adjustment is now showing up in payment amounts across the country. Pension policy experts I've spoken with describe this as a necessary correction. Some call it long overdue. Others warn it could create unintended financial pressure on households that are already stretched thin. What we know for certain is this. February 25th marks the first full payment period where these new calculations are reflected in CPP deposits nationwide. And that means millions of Canadians are about to see a change in their retirement income, whether they're aware of it or not. Let me be very clear about what is actually shifting here, because there's a lot of confusion online and even among financial advisors who aren't specialists in Canadian pension law. First, the CPP indexation rate for 2026 has been set at 2.3%. This is based on the Consumer Price Index increase measured over the 12-month period ending in October 2025. That indexation applies to all CPP retirement, disability, and survivor benefits. On the surface, a 2.3% increase sounds positive, and for many recipients it is. If you were receiving the maximum CPP retirement benefit in 2025, which was approximately $1,364.60 per month, the indexed amount for 2026 brings that figure to roughly $1,395.98 per month. That's an increase of about $31 per month, or just over $370 annually. But here's where it gets complicated. That indexation only applies if you were already receiving the maximum benefit. And the reality is that most Canadians are not. The average CPP retirement payment in Canada is closer to $850 per month. For those recipients, the 2.3% increase translates to roughly $1,875 per month, or about $225 per year. Now, let's layer in the second change. The year's maximum pensionable earnings, known as the YMPE, has increased to $71,300 for 2026. This is the income threshold that determines CPP contribution rates for workers and self-employed Canadians. If you're still working and earning above this threshold, your CPP contributions are going up. The employee contribution rate remains at 5.95% of pensionable earnings, but because the YMPE has risen, the total dollar amount you're paying into the system has increased as well. For someone earning $80,000 annually, CPP contributions in 2026 will be approximately $4,242.30. That's an increase of about $118 compared to 2025. The third change involves the CPP enhancement, which was introduced in 2019 and is being phased in over several years. The enhanced CPP requires higher contribution rates on earnings between the YMPE and a new upper limit called the Year's Additional Maximum Pensionable Earnings, or YAMPE. For 2026, the YAMPE has been set at $81,200. The additional contribution rate on earnings between $71,300 and $81,200 is 4% for employees, matched by employers. What this means is that higher earners are now contributing significantly more to CPP than they were just 2 years ago, with the promise of higher benefits decades down the line. But here's the tension. Current retirees aren't seeing the full value of these enhancements yet, because the enhanced portion of CPP won't mature for another 20 to 30 years. So we have a system where contributions are rising faster than benefit increases for current recipients. And that's creating a quiet but growing sense of financial pressure across Canadian households. This isn't an abstract policy discussion. These changes are affecting real people, in real time, across every province and territory. Let's start with current CPP recipients, which includes approximately 6.8 million Canadians receiving retirement benefits, another 350,000 receiving disability benefits, and hundreds of thousands more receiving survivor and children's benefits. For this group, the 2.3% indexation provides some relief against inflation, but it's not keeping pace with the actual cost increases many seniors are experiencing in housing, food, utilities, and prescription medications. When inflation runs at 3 to 4% in essential categories but CPP only increases by 2.3%, you're effectively losing purchasing power. You're falling behind, even if the payment amount looks slightly higher on paper. Next, we have near retirees, Canadians in their late 50s and early 60s who are planning to apply for CPP within the next 12 to 24 months. These individuals are watching these numbers closely because the timing of when you apply for CPP has a massive impact on your lifetime benefit. If you apply at age 60, your benefit is reduced by 36% compared to waiting until age 65. If you wait until age 70, your benefit increases by 42%. That decision is complicated enough without factoring in annual indexation changes and shifting contribution thresholds. Then there are working Canadians, particularly those in middle-income and upper-middle-income brackets, who are seeing their CPP contributions climb year after year. For someone earning $75,000, the combination of base CPP contributions and enhanced CPP contributions means they're paying over $4,400 annually into the system. That's not a small amount. And for families managing mortgages, childcare costs, and rising living expenses, that additional payroll deduction is being felt. Finally, we have low-income seniors who rely on a combination of CPP, old age security, and the guaranteed income supplement. For this group, even small changes in CPP amounts can trigger clawbacks in GIS, which is income tested. If your CPP increases by $20 per month due to indexation, but your GIS decreases by $10 or $15 per month because of income testing, the net benefit is far smaller than it appears. This is the hidden complexity of Canada's retirement income system. Benefits don't operate in isolation. They interact, they overlap, and they create unintended consequences that most Canadians don't discover until they're already receiving payments. Let's talk about real numbers. because that's what matters when you're managing a fixed income. Scenario 1. You're a 68-year-old retiree receiving the average CPP benefit of $815 per month. With the 2.3% indexation, your monthly payment increases to approximately $833.75. That's an extra $18.75 per month, or $225 per year. On an annual basis, that might cover 1 month of groceries. It might cover a few utility bills, but it's not transformative. And if inflation in food and housing continues to outpace CPP indexation, you're still losing ground. Scenario 2. You're a 72-year-old receiving the maximum CPP benefit of $1,364.60 per month. Your index payment for 2026 rises to $1,395.98. That's an increase of $31.38 per month, or roughly $376 per year. This is more meaningful. But again, if your property taxes increased by $400, or your home insurance went up by $300, or your medication costs rose by $250, that CPP increase has already been absorbed. Scenario 3. You're a 62-year-old still working and earning $70,000 per year. Your CPP contributions for 2026 are approximately $4,163. That's about $115 more than you paid in 2025. You're not seeing any immediate benefit from that extra contribution. The promise is that your future CPP retirement benefit will be higher, but that's 30 years away. Right now, you're dealing with reduced take-home pay. Scenario 4. You're a 67-year-old receiving both CPP and GIS. Your CPP is $600 per month. With the 2.3% increase, it rises to $613.80. But because GIS is income tested, your GIS payment decreases by approximately $7 per month due to the CPP increase. Your net gain is less than $7 per month. That's $84 per year. It's barely noticeable. These examples illustrate a critical point. CPP adjustments sound significant in percentage terms, but when you break them down into actual dollars, the impact on household budgets is often minimal. And that's creating frustration, particularly among seniors who expected their government pensions to provide more stability and more security than they're currently experiencing. So why is the government making these changes? What's driving the recalibration of CPP payments and contribution rates? The answer is complex, but it comes down to 3 main factors: demographic pressure, fiscal sustainability, and political balancing. First, demographics. Canada's population is aging rapidly. The proportion of Canadians aged 65 and older is projected to reach 23% by 2030. That means more people drawing CPP benefits and fewer workers contributing into the system. The CPP is funded through payroll contributions, not general tax revenue. It's designed to be self-sustaining. But when the ratio of workers to retirees shifts, the math becomes challenging. The CPP Investment Board manages a reserve fund currently valued at over $600 billion. That fund is supposed to help smooth out demographic transitions. But even with strong investment returns, the long-term projections show that contribution rates need to rise to keep the system solvent. That's why we're seeing increases in the YMPE, the introduction of the YAMP, and the gradual implementation of CPP enhancement. Second, fiscal sustainability. The federal government is under pressure to reduce deficits and control spending. While CPP is technically separate from the federal budget, political leaders are acutely aware that any perception of pension instability creates electoral risk. By indexing CPP to inflation, even at levels that don't fully match real cost increases, the government can claim it's protecting seniors while still managing overall fiscal constraints. Third, political balancing. The government is trying to thread a very difficult needle. It needs to keep current retirees satisfied, reassure near retirees that the system is stable, and convince younger workers that paying higher contributions now will result in better benefits later. That's an almost impossible balance to strike. And the result is incremental adjustments, careful messaging, and a lot of policy complexity that most Canadians don't fully understand. From a policy perspective, what we're seeing is a government trying to future-proof CPP without triggering a political backlash. The changes are being implemented gradually, quietly, and in ways that are difficult for the average Canadian to track or contest. Whether that's responsible governance or political maneuvering depends on your perspective. Reaction to these CPP changes has been mixed, and it largely depends on who you ask. Pension policy experts and actuaries tend to view the adjustments as necessary and even prudent. Dr. Malcolm Hamilton, a senior fellow at the C.D. Howe Institute, has stated publicly that CPP indexation tied to CPI is one of the most reliable features of Canada's retirement income system. Other economists, however, have raised concerns. A recent report from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives noted that CPI-based indexation doesn't fully capture the cost pressures facing seniors, particularly in healthcare, housing, and food. Advocacy groups representing seniors have been more vocal. The Canadian Association of Retired Persons, or CARP, has called for a review of how CPP indexation is calculated, arguing that the current formula underestimates the real inflation seniors experience. Provincial responses have been cautious. Quebec, which operates its own parallel pension plan, the Quebec Pension Plan, has implemented similar adjustments. But there's been almost no public debate at the provincial level about whether these increases are adequate. What's perhaps most telling is the relative silence from the federal government. There have been no major announcements, no press conferences, no speeches highlighting the 2026 CPP adjustments. This is policy being implemented through administrative channels, not political ones. And that suggests the government is wary of drawing too much attention to the fact that CPP increases aren't keeping pace with the financial realities many seniors are facing. On social media and online forums, the response from everyday Canadians has been frustration. Many retirees report feeling blindsided by how little their CPP payments have increased relative to their cost of living. Others express confusion about why they're paying more into CPP while working, but seeing minimal benefit growth upon retirement. This disconnect between government messaging and lived experience is creating a credibility gap, and it's one that could have political consequences if inflation remains elevated and pension increases continue to lag. So what can you do right now to navigate these changes and protect your retirement income? First, verify your February 25th CPP payment. Check your bank account on payment day and compare the amount to what you received in January. Make sure the indexation has been applied correctly. If your payment seems incorrect, contact Service Canada immediately. Errors do happen, particularly during transition periods when new calculations are being implemented. Second, review your entire retirement income structure. Don't look at CPP in isolation. Consider your old age security, your GIS if applicable, any workplace pensions, your RRSP or RRIF withdrawals, and any other sources of income. Small changes in one area can trigger clawbacks or tax consequences in another. You need to see the full picture. Third, if you're planning to apply for CPP in the next 12 months, run the numbers carefully. The decision of when to start CPP is one of the most important financial decisions you'll make in retirement. Service Canada has online calculators, but I strongly recommend speaking with a fee-only financial planner who specializes in Canadian retirement income. The difference between applying at 60 versus 65 versus 70 can be tens of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. Fourth, stay informed about future indexation announcements. CPP adjustments are announced every fall based on CPI data. Watch for those announcements and understand how they'll affect your payments the following year. Fifth, if you're still working, review your payroll deductions. Make sure your employer is calculating CPP contributions correctly, especially if your earnings fall near the YMPE or YAMPI thresholds. Sixth, consider income splitting strategies if you're married or in a common law relationship. CPP allows for pension sharing, which can reduce overall household taxes and optimize benefit levels. This requires filing the appropriate forms with Service Canada and CRA, but the tax savings can be significant. Finally, don't assume your CPP will be enough. The maximum CPP benefit replaces roughly 25% of pre-retirement earnings for high earners, and even less for those earning above the YMPE. You need additional savings. You need other income sources. CPP is a foundation, not a complete solution. Looking ahead, what should Canadians expect over the next 2 to 3 years? First, CPP indexation will continue to track inflation, but it's unlikely to exceed inflation by any meaningful margin. If inflation moderates to the Bank of Canada's 2% target, CPP increases will likely settle into the 2 to 2.5% range annually. That means modest growth in payment amounts, but not enough to significantly improve purchasing power. Second, contribution rates will continue to rise as the CPP enhancement phases in. By 2027, the full enhanced CPP structure will be in place, meaning workers will be paying the highest contribution rates in the program's history. The trade-off is that younger workers today will receive higher benefits when they retire. But for Canadians currently in their 50s and 60s, that trade-off feels abstract and distant. Third, political pressure on pension adequacy will likely intensify. If inflation remains elevated, if housing costs continue to climb, if healthcare expenses increase, seniors advocacy groups will push for more aggressive indexation or supplemental benefits. Whether the federal government responds will depend on fiscal conditions, electoral calculations, and competing budget priorities. Fourth, watch for changes to old age security and GIS. These programs are funded from general tax revenue, not contributions, which makes them more vulnerable to budget cuts or restructuring. Any changes to OAS or GIS will have a direct impact on how CPP adjustments affect overall retirement income. Finally, there's the longer-term question of CPP sustainability. The current projections suggest the plan is financially sound for at least the next 75 years, but those projections are based on assumptions about investment returns, immigration levels, workforce participation, and life expectancy. If any of those assumptions prove incorrect, future adjustments could be more dramatic than what we're seeing now. The changes to your February 25th CPP payment are real, they're measurable, and they matter. For some Canadians, the 2.3% indexation will provide modest relief. For others, it won't be enough to keep pace with rising costs. And for those still contributing to the system, the increase in payroll deductions will be felt immediately. This is the reality of managing retirement income in Canada in 2026. The system is complex, the rules are constantly evolving, and staying informed is the only way to protect yourself. What I've shared with you today isn't meant to create panic. It's meant to create awareness. Because the Canadians who understand how CPP works, who track the changes, who plan accordingly, are the ones who will navigate retirement successfully. The Canadians who ignore these details, who assume the government will take care of everything, are the ones who will struggle. If you found this information valuable, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. I cover Canadian pension policy, tax changes, and retirement planning strategies that directly affect your financial security. Leave a comment below if you have questions about your CPP payment, if you've noticed changes in your February deposit, or if you're planning to apply for benefits in the coming months. I read every comment, and I'll do my best to provide guidance where I can. Share this video with family members, friends, or anyone you know who's navigating retirement right now. This information is too important to keep to yourself. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay prepared, and I'll see you in the next one.